Today we're going to talk about a Back to the Basics, part of the Back to the Basics series. And this is something that we as humans share universally. We all have to have this, and that's water. So there are many ways that you can treat your water. You can purify your water. You can boil it. You can use chemicals. Or you can use one of these. And this is a Sawyer water filter. So I'm going to take some water out of the river here. We're going to run it through this filter. I'm going to show you how this works. Now, for you folks that say you don't filter your water before you drink it, I just have to ask why. So there's all kinds of things floating around in the water. Sawyer Squeeze system. This comes with two 32-ounce bags. And all you do is dip this down into the water to fill it up. I find it easier to go in a back and forth motion like that to fill this up, and hopefully that shows on video. The water's filled up to right about there. So I can get a little more in there. And now we're up to about here. That's a cap that'll go on this in case you need to set this down and fill up the other bag. Here you can see the squeeze, and I brought along for size comparison the mini. Now the mini is the one that I normally keep in my USMC Philby hydration carrier because it's small, it's compact, fits down in that carrier very nicely. Properly maintained, these filters will filter 100,000 gallons of water each. It's a lot of water. It's a sip cap. So in case you put this on top of a smart water bottle, cap it off pretty easily. Depending on the severity and how dirty the water is, how many particles I can visually see, sometimes I put this inline hose filter into these. And to get it to work right, I have to take that Sawyer O-ring out and put this one in. Most of the time though, I try to pre-filter the water before I put it in the bag, so I don't have to use this. And what we're going to filter the water into in the container is this new Stanley cook pot. Borrowed this from my buddy Wally. Test it out a little while and see what we think about it. See if I need to get a new Stanley pot. Seems like every time I think I've got my cook set down, they come out with something new. The way to do this is put it on just pretty much finger tight. That's about all you want. When you go to use the filter, you don't want to twist the bag. You can roll it or you can squeeze it like so. Go ahead and take that cap off. Put that there. And start rolling that bag down. Now you don't have to squeeze terribly hard. You really don't have to squeeze much at all with this one. Not using a lot of force here. Cap that off. Let's take a look at that. Absolutely beautiful water. I am having some dust particles flying here with the wind blowing around right now. That's good water. Right out of the river, through the filter. It's fantastic. Now, in my opinion, this is an absolute must on the bug out bags gear list, the survival gear list, the hiker backpacker gear list. You can filter 100,000 gallons of water through this system. We've used these filters countless times over the years. Only issue we've ever had with them are the bags. Right around the collar here, where the bag is attached to the nozzle, would separate and would leak. And we've discovered a lot of that was due to our misuse of the bag, twisting it as we're trying to filter the water. We really discovered that the best way to do this is to roll the bag as you're using it. And that way it's giving an even amount of pressure all across the top here and not just there where the nozzle connects. Before we get into some of the attachments, I want to go over this filter real quick. This filter works the exact same way as the squeeze. This one does take a little more pressure to get the flow. Let's dip this down into the water to fill it up. The squeeze system comes with 2 of these 32-ounce bags. Gives you some instructions on how to backwash the filter. And that, folks, is key on using this filter to its max. Keeping it clean. Backwashing, I'll show you how to do that in here in just a moment. Instructions on its use. Pretty straightforward. They put the flow on there so that you don't accidentally drink contaminated or unfiltered water. There's the O-ring. Now, important to note that if you put this on too tight with that, it will push that O-ring down inside that filter. Sometimes that O-ring can get caught inside of the nozzle here, and you'll get a bad leak around this. And you won't filter your water. Actually, you can contaminate the water that you're trying to filter because it's leaking. So again, once the bag is filled with water, finger tight. Comes with 2 caps. Once you fill up your bag, cap it off for storage so that you can filter later. Pretty handy stuff. The cap, the nozzle that goes to the front of the filter that you can sip from, it's important to note that it also has an O-ring there. You don't want to put that on too tight either. Finger tight is always best. No need to crank down on it. These are your inline water carrier adapters. One of these goes in this way. One goes this way. You can't mix it up because one is threaded on the outside. This one's threaded on the inside. So the way this works is if you take your water bladder and you dip it in the river or whatever water source it is, you fill that up, you take the hose coming out of the water bladder. Now you need to have two pieces. One coming out of the water bladder will hook into this side, and the other piece of hose that you have that has your bite valve on it will go to this side. So rather than having to spend the time to gather the water in these bags, you just dip your hydration bladder in there and you can filter it as you're drinking it. Personally, I like to keep my water bladder clean. I don't want any particulate in there. I don't want any unfiltered water in it. I like to keep that clean. But this is an option. And it does come with a little hose. Now this hose can be used on either end of this. And really, in this scenario, I like to put it on the bottom. I'm not going to put it all the way on there because when you put that on, it's not coming off unless you cut it. But you take this and you stick that hose on and you can drink from the top of this. If you're not, for some reason, not able to get your bag down into the water, you're dealing with a small crevice, something of that nature, you can stick that hose down into that water, down into that area, and be able to suck this out like a straw. It's a very, very neat, well thought out, awesome piece of gear. Backflushing. This is how you keep this filter clean, and this is how you keep it at its peak performance. What I like to do is some of the filtered water, I always keep to the side, keep just a little bit left, so that I can fill the syringe, so that I can fill this plunger up with clean water. Put it on the end of that there. And I'm going to move it over to the side so you can see what happens. What this does is it just pushes that dirty water right back out. Anything that may have been caught up in there will get pushed out. It just helps it stay clean. Get a little more here. Right on top. Pretty self-explanatory, pretty easy to do. You just push it down. And this cleans your filter out. Once I get back home, I'll take this and set it up on the dish rack. So water, it's never really completely out. As you can see, there's still, this is an empty plunger. And you can still push water out of that. So what I like to do is leave this on the dish rack so that it will, all the water will collect down towards the bottom. And I'll come in with an empty plunger and just continuously throughout the week plunge that out and push all that water out. I don't want any mold or anything like that growing inside of this. 100,000 gallons of water that I can drink. I want to keep this in top shape. Back flushing of the Sawyer Mini works the exact same way. Now, I've used this one for a long time. You can see this cap here is broken, but it works the exact same way. Plunger fits right on top of it. Just push it right on out. So drawback. There's always a drawback to something. There's a drawback to everything. The only chink in the armor I have found with this system is with the bag itself. But again, I think that came from a lot of our misuse and not necessarily the bag being a bad design. We would get leaks up here around this collar where we'd use so much force trying to push the water out through the filter. This would begin to separate and leak right here, right around that seam there. And that would cause the filtered water to be contaminated with the unfiltered water from the bag. Now, we've had these mini filters and the squeezes for, oh goodness, 2010. So you get 10 years out of a bag, 12 years out of one bag. That's pretty good. And again, a lot of that came, the leak, and the leak didn't develop until just recently, about a year ago maybe. So a lot of this to help extend the life of that bag. Make sure your technique is clean, that you're not just scrunching the bag all up like this while you're trying to squeeze it. I found it best to just roll the bag up as you're trying to filter that water. So again, guys, that's really the only drawback to the system. And again, I can't even really call that a drawback. Good stuff. It's important to note that you have to keep these from freezing. Water's in here and it freezes, it'll bust the filter, render it useless. So during the winter months, if you use this, try to back flush it out and then use an empty plunger to try and push it, to force air through there, to try and push out as much remaining water out of it as you can. And keep this in your bag with you. If you have to put it in a plastic bag so it doesn't leak that additional or excess water in your sleeping bag, put it in something like that. You do need to do what you can to keep that from freezing. This is what you get along with the mesh bag, mesh storage bag comes with it. And again, not pictured, I have it in my backpack. There comes with 2 of these 32-ounce bags, storage mesh bag, inline adapters, the cap, and 2 of these caps. Close off your water bags, and the plunger. It's a fantastic system. If you spend any amount of time outside, I would suggest one of these. Now again, ways to treat water other than with a filter like this. There are chemical tabs you can use. You can boil your water, but sometimes boiling water is not always convenient. These filters are pretty much in every kit we have. Now, the Philby main pack that I always carry, the big monster pack, I always keep one of the bigger filters in. And the smaller packs, the 3-day pack and the hydration carrier, I always keep the minis in. Because you never know when you're going to need to filter water. You never know when you're going to run out of water and need some more. And as you can see, got a lot of water behind me. Those need to be in every vehicle you have, every bag that you have, because we all need water. No water, no life. That's just, it's just how God built us. Thank you for joining me today on this Back to the Basics. How to filter water, hydrate or die. Defend the weak, fight for what you love. May the wings of liberty never lose a feather.